Okay, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that people are still joining, in which case, as I mentioned, this session is being recorded and will be shared with you hopefully next week, so you will be able to catch up with some of the key takeaways and content that will be shared today. So hello, good afternoon. I'm Roxy Iqbal and I am the Strategic Director at Deep Knowledge Group, and I am your moderator for today's presentations and discussions. Following the success of our last conference, Deep Knowledge Philanthropy is pleased to welcome you to this conference, which is DeepTech for Social Good. Advanced technologies, AI, blockchain, robotics, and FinTech, to name a few, have the potential to level the playing field for even the most powerful of forces. And while the world has evolved and benefited from technology on all fronts, from how we work to how we live, we recognize the power that innovation has to make our world a better place for everybody. So today we are going to introduce to you the major players who are going to share insights on how they are leveraging the power of technology to bring forth positive and global change. Today we also bring to you leaders, founders, visionaries, organizations and startups, all who play a crucial role in solving complex problems and answering complex questions as well of the modern world, and those who drive real social change using frontier technologies in developing countries across the globe. As mentioned, our agenda will include keynote speakers, presentations and use cases, live panel debate, and the opportunity for our audience to engage with their questions. I would kindly direct you to the bottom little bar that you have at the bottom of your screen. You have chat and then you have Q&A. What I would ask is, for those of you who've got a specific question, please send that in the Q&A box. Otherwise, it just gets swallowed up in chat. And if it's for a specific speaker, please do tag their name or just say their name at the start of your question. For everybody else, I would love it if you just engaged and commented on what your experience is and any feedback. And as always, please let me know who you are. I'd like to know who my audience is and who our audience is and who we're speaking to. And it would be great to know where you're from, which corner of the world you're in, and also what you do, and specifically what brings you here today. So without further ado, I think it's safe to say that we are going to start. So I am beyond delighted to invite our first speaker to the stage, and I would like to welcome Dr. Olawale Ongunlana. Olawale is the director of Deep Knowledge Philanthropy. Dr. Olawale is an expert physician, and he has served for over a decade in active clinical practice. He has executed and managed several medical projects in remote communities across Nigeria. In addition, he serves as a member of the board of directors in 2 secondary healthcare facilities that provide healthcare to thousands of Nigerians each year. He is the co-founder of the 100K Club, a non-profit organization providing healthcare access and services to the most vulnerable Nigerians in dire need of medical assistance. In addition, he is a known public speaker and writer representing different international brands and organizations. I'm sure you've all come across him. I have, for sure. And as a public health advocate and digital creator, Dr. Olawale is dedicated to building health-conscious communities across Africa and engaging health and wellness media content. Today, he currently serves, as I mentioned, as a director of Deep Knowledge Philanthropy, and which is a data-driven non-profit organization focused on creating and supporting tangible humanitarian and social impacts through deep tech. While he firmly believes that failure will never overtake anyone whose determination to succeed is strong enough, his vision is to build social impact platforms that will transform Africa and the rest of the world while standing the test of time. Olawale, it's my pleasure to hand this session over to you, and I'm very much looking forward to what you've got to say.
Thank you so much, Roxy, for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I want to say a very big thank you to all our panelists and to every of our attendees who are joining us for this conference, DeepTech for Social Good. It's a privilege to be here and to share these insights with you. Today, I'm going to be talking about technology as a tool for social inclusion, and also giving an overview about what we do at Deep Knowledge Philanthropy, our impact activities, and everything, our impact activities as a non-profit organization. So today, the key points and the key takeaways that I would want us to have is know a little bit more about Deep Knowledge Philanthropy and our impact projects, and then we'll discuss the role of technology in the world and technology as a tool for inclusion. Yes, so Deep Knowledge Philanthropy is a data-driven nonprofit project created by the Deep Knowledge Group, which is committed to the support, development, and advancement of deep tech for social good, impact philanthropy, and ethical investment. It was founded on the belief that deep tech innovation is the most efficient driver of social profit, technological humanitarianism, and societal development, and that venture philanthropy is a profitable long-term investment for individuals, national economies, and humanity itself. We have a mission, and just to put it down in a few bullet points, we are on a mission to provide information about the global philanthropy industry and as well as social impact and impact investment space. We collaborate with a lot of key players using technology for social good. We build high impact platforms for social good. And we drive conversations, about technology, social impact, just like we're doing right now, through high-level media engagements. And another key thing that we do here is that we achieve this mission by employing a diverse set of talented individuals who are, living in developing countries around the world, which have this the highest need for sustainable technological and social impact investment. So just as a bullet point, there are a couple of things that we do. We are focused on reports, we are focused on platform building, and we also focus on high media engagement. So in our reports, for anyone who follows us, or maybe if you're just joining us for the very first time, we have a lot of reports about the philanthropic industry, about the impact and investment space. We also had a report about COVID and the effect of COVID in developing countries. We have a lot of reports that are usually targeted at answering big questions across the world, especially in developing countries. So you can also check that out. We also have our platforms that we build platforms regarding the philanthropy industry, the impact investment space, regarding FinTech for social good, and investors, social impact investors. We have we've collected many of this information, and we usually we use AI to track data regarding this sector, that's the global philanthropy and the impact investment space. So this is something that you can check out at your convenience at any time. We have also built, part of the platforms that we have is the African Charity Dashboard, which is a unique social tool that helps, that lists different charities in Africa, their activities, and then, also by country, the prevalent programs in different countries and what they are actually focused on, whether it is business, community development, healthcare, or education or agriculture. So these are the things that we do. And then, like I earlier mentioned, we have media engagements where we have conferences like what we are having right now with key stakeholders in the industry. We also have our newsletters, which we would like you to sign up with, where we talk about philanthropy and different interesting aspects of philanthropy and social impact investment. And then we have high quality media projects for any one of us, for anyone here who is a part of our live conversation. You can actually tune into any of our social media platforms and connect to our Deep Impact series. So we have, short media series that actually shed the spotlight on people and organizations that are creating impact in today's world. We also have the documentary series, which is Deep Impact, which you can also connect with us on YouTube, and then Deep Impact Plus, where we connect personally with founders to share their insights on the problems that they are solving in today's day and age. So to the main conversation that we are going to be having today, we are going to be discussing about technology as, you know, a tool for social inclusion. So the question, I think the big question for us today is, how do you see technology? You know, a lot of us see technology as, you know, through different lenses. I personally, you know, I see technology as helping me to interact better with the world. And definitely, we can all agree that technology offers various tools to boost development, exchange information, and to improve our lives. But then, that's a fact. That is actually a fact. But then I want to also put up an argument, and just stay with me. Yeah. So, and the argument is we are all disabled, and there is every tendency for us to, you know, ask questions that, what do you mean? Like, are we all disabled? No, no, I am not. I mean, I'm okay. Like, I don't have any problems, right? I don't have any health problems. But then I think it's a context that we tend to miss out a lot, because when we talk about people living with disabilities and we talk about social inclusion for people living with disabilities, we tend to look at disability from the lens of people who are struggling with, you know, a higher degree of disabilities, and not from the context of the fact that every one of us at some certain point in time will live or will have problem with, you know, accessibility challenges. So this is something that it is because of this that we tend to have a very narrow mindset on, you know, talking about technology, including everybody, and technology for people living with disabilities, assistive technologies that help people live better lives, people with disabilities live better lives. So, but here's the thing. The fact is, the chance of having a stroke doubles every 10 years after age 55, increasing the need for rehabilitative services. So this means that somebody who is, you know, who is fine, somebody like me, you know, I'm healthy, I'm fine. By the time I'm 55, I would actually require some type of assistive technology to make me interact better with the world. So, and a lot of us tend to forget, we tend to think that technology, and when we talk about disability, we are only looking at it from the context of people living with severe disabilities that impair, you know, their ability to interact properly with the world. But the fact is that every one of us at some point in time, we would require an assistive technology. And if we continue with this line, we see that 73% of older adults that are age 50 years and above, we experience loss of vision or sight as they age, and they will require visual assistance. There are some of us, you know, who actually already require visual assistance, and we are not yet 50. And the fact is that we do require assistive technologies at some point. So also, just furthermore, just to nail and take this point home, there are about 3 million people worldwide that are living with pacemakers today. And each year we have about 600,000 new pacemakers that are implanted. So the idea and what we are trying to say is disability is a context. And this is exactly what we are trying to say when we are talking about technology as a means for social inclusion. We are talking about ensuring that everybody in the spectrum of disabilities, whether the person that is living with a high level of disability or a low level disability, they all have the equal access to technology, because technology should be a leveler. So it's not a disability problem, it is an accessibility problem. The fact is we are all in need of technology to better our lives, but just to a varying degree. I don't know if you will agree with me, Bob. But according to the World Health Organization, it says that by 2030, about 3.5 billion people will require an assistive technology product. However, only 1 out of 10 people have access to an assistive product today. And this is mind-blowing, because for me personally, when I look at it personally, I will require an assistive product sometime in my life. But then, will I be able to get access to it? These are the big questions that we are answering today. And that is why we are having this conversation about technology. How are we seeing technology, you know, regarding assistive technology? Are we just looking at it as technology for people who are living with a high degree of disabilities, or we are looking at it from the angle that this technology should enable everyone, whether it's the person that is living with a high degree of disability, to interact better with the world. We can agree, we can all agree that we harness technology to care for our health needs and better interact with the world as we age. But then why can't we harness technology to allow people with disabilities interact better with the world today? This is the question. This is the major question that we are trying to answer, and we have to discuss. And these are the conversations that we are hoping to have right now and in the near future regarding assistive technologies and the importance of assistive technology in driving inclusive growth for everyone in the spectrum, whether the person, the person is poor and challenged, whether the person was born with a disability or, has a severe degree of disability. Everyone should have equal access. Technology should enable them interact equally with the world. All right, so I will throw the question again. How do you see technology? Do you see technology better right now? Or do you see technology as just making your own life better or making the life of everyone in the spectrum, whether the person is living with a disability or a high degree of disability or a low level of disability? Here are a few things that I would just like to say. The most important thing that we must remember here in today's lecture, in today's seminar, is technology should be aimed at driving inclusion for all persons. And when we mean all persons, we mean all persons. Today, we are having a conversation about people who are living with high degrees of disability. But beyond that, we are talking about technology being able to empower lives, people living in remote communities in the world that can't that have trouble getting access to the necessary and the basic amenities of life. Technology should be aimed at driving inclusion for all persons. And today we are focused on people who are living with disabilities, but then there is more to this spectrum, but we'll be focusing on disabilities today. Technology should, the key takeaway here is that we have to provide technology for people, providing technology for people living with disabilities can improve economies. And this is actually a fact, because when we are able to create, we are able to improve the life of people that are living with disabilities. For example, people who have access to, bionic arms, they have access to prosthetics, implant pacemakers. They are able to live better. They are able to be to integrate better with the society and also contribute better to the economy of the country where they live. So, and this takes me to the next point, that a breakthrough in assistive technology is a breakthrough for all of us. And this is the fact. We shouldn't look at assistive technology from the lens of we are dealing with technology for people who are living with disabilities, people who are poor, but rather we have to remember that at some point in time, we would require an assistive product at some point in time. So technology, a breakthrough in assistive technology is a breakthrough for all of us. And the fact is, we all need to create better ecosystems to grow assistive technologies. So in my research for this seminar, I realized that the United Kingdom is among the countries in the world that is actually trying to even the odds for people living with disabilities. And one of the things that they do is, right now, the UK has been ranked 7th in global expertise for assistive technologies. And one of the key things is that the UK has enabled growth by building an ecosystem that allows for assistive tech startups to thrive, providing access to a pool of technology, talent, and workforce. The United Kingdom also fosters better social integrations for people living with disabilities. The question is, can this be replicated in different governments around the world? Can we try as much as possible to look at assistive technologies as an important tool to improve global economies? These are the questions that we are having today. In our last report by Deep Knowledge Philanthropy, we actually talked about assistive tech in the UK. We actually had just an overview about assistive technologies and the importance of assistive technologies, driving growth in the UK. And please, if you have some free time, make sure you check that out. The question I would like to leave us with today is, how do you plan to use technology to make the world better? Today, we are gathered, talking about deep tech for social good. This is the big question, because as we live here today, we need to ask ourselves very important questions. how do we plan to use technology to make our world better? In the question of assistive tech, we are talking about using technology to make the lives of people living with high degree of disabilities to have better lives, to better integrate with the society and be able to interact with the world just like we do. So the question is, how do you plan to use technology to make the world better? I will end my presentation today with a quote from Marie Curie. And the quote says that you cannot hope to build a better world without improving the individuals. To that end, each of us must work for his own improvement and at the same time, share a general responsibility for all humanity. Our particular duty being to aid those whom we think we can be most useful. Thank you so much for being a part of today's presentation. And I'm glad to yield my mic. And I hope that the rest of the speakers will be able to share more of their insights with you. And we at the Deep Knowledge Group are also trying to answer this big question: what are we doing what can we do to make technology better? And we are trying as much as possible to collaborate with partners, work with key stakeholders in the industry so that we can impact the necessary change for the world. Thank you.
Olawale, thank you so much. That was really inspiring. And you and I have had several conversations about assistive technology and what it means to us and to everybody else, and how it's not. And I think it's really interesting to touch upon what you said about not limiting it just to people with disabilities, and to really take into account those that will require assistive technology later on in life as you're getting older, you know, for vision, for hearing, and just things that are a part of natural aging as well. So it was absolutely fascinating. A lot of what you said has resonated with me personally. And I'm really excited, I think, for sure, to touch upon some of the commentary that you've made. Your passion, you exude passion, I think we can all agree. Yeah. And it's inspiring to hear. And I think one of the things I said to Katrina is we need to protect Olawale at all costs. We need people with this drive and this passion to actually make our world a better place, because I think that's for sure at the forefront of everything that you do in your thinking. So thank you so much. It's been a privilege to have heard from you, and I'm very excited to have the Q&A later. Saeed, we are delighted to welcome you as our next keynote speaker. Saeed is a professor emeritus, a doctor in social and economic sciences, and an international qualified enterprise content and FDI intelligence and operations and policy expert. He is a professional focal point for the international corporations seeking market expansion in Africa and around the world. He is the founder and chief counsel of Volupolis Capital, an impact inward investment management firm. He has also held several senior roles in government, private institutions, and served in many positions as a senior business analyst, to name one, working in corporate strategy and as an investment architect. Saeed, it's our pleasure to have you join. Please, if you feel that there's something else that you would like to add about your experience and impressive background, please feel free to do so. And I will now pass the floor to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry for my voice. I'm a little bit sick, as I was talking yesterday with Olawale about the preparations and what we are planning after this conference. What you said highlights more or less my experience, and the key points we discussed yesterday is about the cooperation we are leading in terms of development of unified platform ecosystem for data, deep knowledge, and also the use of data for social and economic transformation. We focus mainly on the economic development and foreign direct investments. And the key element there is how to create more opportunities using data, AI and data and analytics. And the concept or the business model we developed over the years is how to help not only global companies, but also startup ecosystems and governments to attract investment and to be very close to growth and more inclusive development and more sustainable development. And I am very happy to connect with Deep Knowledge Philanthropy and a group at the same time, because despite the fact that we have been working in from different parts of the world, I think our work converges towards something very important, and it's the need for social, economic, and also training and so on in Africa, but in all developing countries. And the platform we have set up to deliver really very sophisticated assistance and support to not only startups, but to global companies willing to develop, so as we can really affect affect not only economies, but to bring sustainable development to the people we are serving. And the way we are now deploying our system from September on is the accelerator. What I call the accelerator is the system that will deploy all these powerful AI data and analytics and our connections in the whole market to create more sustainable opportunities and help data to transform lives and economies in Africa. So that's my main focus now, and we have many projects ready for deployment. And the main one is the accelerator in Casablanca, fully dedicated to startups, but also to support the economies with heavy impact in world investment, where we assist actually many countries in North Africa mainly, and with the very heavy infrastructure, technology, and industrial projects, where we are looking really to bring technology know-how and finance, of course, and on the other side is to open these parts of the world to Europe and to America. The key element here is, since we are talking about deep knowledge, is how we can accelerate all the development through highly qualified people we have from economic development, but also through financial expertise. So as we deploy solutions, very smart solutions and investment schemes for the different projects, because as you know, different ecosystems, startup ecosystems are lacking not only finance, but they are lacking also connections and the way they can really integrate markets without having headaches on the ground in different jurisdictions where we have expertise. And we are deploying this unified platform in Casablanca for Africa and the Middle East to really be close to the idea makers, to startups, and to global companies, so as we can really make a difference in the way they can penetrate the markets, in the way they can affect with their solutions, with their inventions, and how they can impact the local and the regional economies. That's the key elements.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for your presentations. I
Sorry
hope
for my voice. Huh?
No, it's okay. I actually feel really bad. No, it was great. Don't worry.
Sorry,
we caught you. Just need some honey and some lemon, and that should hopefully help. But don't worry. If you are able to, it would be great to have you join us at the end for the Q&A and the panel as well. And again, to our audience, please do send your questions in, and they will be addressed accordingly. Said, thank you so much for joining us. Really insightful discussion with you, and again, we'll be speaking with you very shortly at the end of the Q&A. Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. So if it's okay, I'm going to do a quick intro. Lanre is CEO and co-founder at IdentityPass. He is IdentityPass is a KYC compliance company backed by over 3.3 million in equity funding, which is pretty impressive. And you've gone through the #1 tech startup acceleration program through the Y Combinator, which is really impressive. He was once COO of a property tech company, my Paddy, and an IT officer for Enactors in Nigeria. He was once a team leader of a student-led organization called Enactors AAUA, where he led hundreds of students to execute community-led projects. He has a Bachelor's of Science in Education in Computer Science and Education, and he's gone ahead to complete a postgrad diploma at the London School of International Business, majoring in Strategic Management. Lanre is also an MBA student at, gosh, you're studying a lot here, which is really impressive. Is also an MBA student at Johns Hopkins University, which is incredible, specializing in analytics, leadership, and innovation. Lanre, it's just, you've got such a great background, lots of academic experience, and if I've missed anything, please feel free to fill in for me.
Thank you so much, Rosie. So hi everyone, nice to be here. I'll probably just, I think I can share my screen very briefly. Please do confirm if you can see it right now. Yeah. Okay, great. So again, my name is Larry, and Rosie already did a great job in terms of the background, so probably I won't just go there. Today, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Identipass. And what we do basically is to help millions of Africans to not just only be verified when they need to access a couple of services, either banking services, or they want to get credit, or mobility, or e-commerce services, whichever one, right? HR, background checks. But as well, we kind of open the door for many people in this part of the world to access so many global services, right? And I'm just going to go through few points around, because I have like a few minutes, few points around what I'm meant to discuss about. So I'm really talking about harnessing the power of technology and digital identity for governance in developing countries. Again, pointers on developing countries. And this is because today we operate in this space, right? And probably we can talk on that. But before I move on, let me see if I can, great. So again, this is what we are. And today we serve a couple of countries, a couple of players in Africa. Majorly we're in Nigeria, but we have so many companies that we serve in Kenya, Rwanda, South Africa. Today we can easily verify over 30, people from like 30 different countries in Africa. And globally, we today can verify over 6,000 government IDs. And also internally, we have 3 different types of products. We have data verification, which is we connected directly to government database. We know digital IDs of individuals, and we just help them when businesses need to do like KYC on them, we kind of like confirm that yes, they actually who they say they are. The second one is the biometrics, where we've kind of understudied what the biometric landscape looks like in the region, and compared to the West, where, for instance, they probably do not have things like facial marks on their faces. In Africa, and for those that probably know Africa, you probably would have met 1 or 2 persons that have like facial marks. Yeah. Sometimes some biometrics technology that are not homegrown have not placed this thing into context, and that's part of the things that we've done. And the third thing is document verification, which allows us to recognize any government approved documents in the region. But let me go really into some of the realities we have right in the region. Globally, there are over 1 billion people that do not have any form of ID. You can't even recognize them. They can't be traced, right? It's 1% of that number stays here in sub-Saharan Africa. The effect of that number, in case we do not know, the effect of that number is that you don't know what people, you don't know who they are, you don't know where they are. And so when you want to do community services, or you want to empower them either from the government level or from even the private level, it's very difficult, because you're going into a region, you don't know the number of people that stays there, you don't know what they do, you don't know the kind of job that they are, you don't know their economic strengths. And so it's quite difficult for you to map any social plan to help them. And that's a big challenge that we currently face in the region, where we have a lot of people that cannot even be identified. We have a lot of people that do not even have like birth certificates. or even the digital form, right? And so you don't know where they were giving birth to, you don't know what kind of health plan they should be on, you don't know if they should be on a health plan. And so when you ask them, hey, what do you think your age is? Some people probably just guess because of their skin, well, I think I look like I'm in my 50s, or kind of trace when somebody in their family died, and it's kind of messy. That's a big chunk of reality we have in the region today. Now, going deeply into what digital identity means, again, a bit of context for those probably that sometimes mix this up with paper identity. So we have the paper identity, which is the manual one, the handwritten one, and we have countries like Ethiopia, for instance, that have like handwritten IDs. Digital identity, again, needs to meet minimum these 4 major criteria, right? There are other criteria that are defined, but these are like the 4 major ones that needs to be met. The first one is it needs to be of high standard, right? That the standard is being laid by the government, or it's being laid by private sector, whoever, but it needs to be of high standard. Second is that it needs to be unique. So you need to be able to tie one person to a particular ID, and you also know the attributes of that person because you've been able to tie that ID to that person. And so you can create like unique programs. You can now create like so many services and products for that person because now you can identify who they are. The third thing also is the fact that the individual still remains the owner of the data, right? So you need to get consent from the person to be able to issue a digital ID or to be able to manage a digital ID for the person, right? And on that particular context, in developing countries today, especially most countries in Africa, there are a couple of cultural things that kind of like hits against that. I'm from a culture called Yoruba in Nigeria, and in my deep culture, we have something that says it's a taboo to count the children of a person for him or her. So usually, so when I was young, when there was this census that was conducted because in where I used to live when I was very young. And a couple of people had issues allowing the census folks, the national population folks, to actually count the number of children that they have. Because according to them, it's a taboo. You can't count my children, right? I will tell you the number of children that I have, but you can't just count for me, right? And that's a reality. We still have so many, very few taboo system or very few cultural things that kind of negates this digital identity movements. And the fourth one is that the person that owns the ID needs to be able to control the ID, needs to be able to have the permission to withdraw the IDs when they want to withdraw or modify it or allow other people to access it. These are the 4 major criteria that a digital ID needs to have. Again, other institutions have different other additions, right? But these are the 4 things that we work with here. Now, bringing this back again to more context, I think this was something that was done by McKinsey, a report that was done by McKinsey, and bringing back the huge number of people that do not have digital IDs. Again, you can see the number of people we have globally in the world. And this just literally broke it down to how massive this challenge is. And even though we have some of the people in the developed world already solved this, literally they can trace people in even the US, you have your SSN, that kind of ties to so many things. In the developing world, that is still missing, right? And that needs to be solved. So it needs to be solved using enrollment, it needs to be solved using authentication and verification, and that's we are in the verification side of things, right? So you have a huge number of people, again, that do not have these things. Now, what happens, and I'm going to, because I have a very limited time, what happens when this is rightly done in developing world, right? What happens when everybody has digital ID, or at least a good number of people have digital IDs? I think I have some examples from very few, just 2 countries that shows what can happen when things are done rightly. And we saw, so for instance, Chile, I think this happened in during the COVID season, because they were able to, they have a lot of people in the country enrolled in the digital ID system. They were able to roll out so many millions of social programs. They're part of one of the few countries in the world that have sustainably rolled out so many social programs based on digital ID and sustain it, right? We've also seen an example in India where over 200 million people, women specifically, were able to have access to financial inclusion program. Again, because digital ID was greatly done in India. Again, these are examples that developing countries can easily adopt. There's no way, so we can't keep talking about financial inclusion. We can't keep talking about ensuring that every single gender have access to equal opportunities, but we can't even identify them. We don't even know who they are, where they are, right? We can't build social programs in developing countries when we do not invest in digital IDs, or when people do not pay some level of cognizance into things like this. And just beginning back to what we do, right? Personally, as an Pass, what we do today is, and I'm not talking high level of things we do. I'm just beginning to just one major thing I think is more important to this conference is the fact that because we exist, because we are in existence, so many people in the region can now afford or access a couple of products and services. And in the course of this program, I can take some questions around how we're doing that. Today, we've seen more women now being able to get credits because we cannot do their KYC for a credit provider that actually wants to give them credits. These are things that they did not allow before. If you are in Nigeria, for instance, today, you know that you may not be able to request payment using PayPal. And that's just one example. There's so many apps that are blocked from people that live in Africa, different part of African region, because they can't just verify them. It's not the fault of these businesses, right? Now we are opening it up. We are working with so many companies in India, in the US, and UK. And so naturally, people in Africa, in the developing world, can now access global products and services from music streaming to financial services and all that. And we hope to double down on these efforts. Thank you so much. Probably don't take much of your time. If you have questions, I guess we'll take it at the panel session.
Thank you so much, Larry. I actually was just about to I was just writing a question down that I had, which I'm happy to sort of pose at the end, but just seeing as you've just touched upon it, it's quite interesting what you've mentioned about financial inclusion. We can't just keep speaking about it. We actually need to act upon it as well, because of what that actually the doors and the actual social good that can actually allow for. You know, financial inclusion is not just giving somebody a bank account, it's giving them a means to
Yes.
a new world, a new life, and it's opening doors from them professionally, from a lifestyle point of view, socially. It's giving them such an independence and a confidence in that could, you know, launch them beyond what they think they currently can and are capable of doing, because that's what they're limited to, unfortunately. And I think what I for sure wanted to speak to you about, and we can touch upon later, unless you want to mention now, is there's always a really significant role that governments have here. So, for example, you've touched upon PayPal, and PayPal is very, you know, often there will be a lot of political reasons behind why there is access and there isn't access. So sometimes the financial inclusion is out of the hands of incredible startups and organizations such as yourselves. So what are you doing to navigate those barriers with governments?
So what we do today, and thanks for that question, great one. What we do today is to try to see how we can work with so many government agencies in terms of, number one, policy formation. There's so many countries in Africa today that do not even have data laws, right? Like real established data laws like you have in the GDPR. I mean, Nigeria probably has one, NDPR underneath that. But you have so many African countries that do not even have one that is really recognized, that kind of protect, that recognizes digital ID and also protect the citizens for this. And so usually one of the things we do today is to work with government agencies from different parts of Africa to see how we can also help them with policy formation, again, on digital IDs, on the use of it, on the management of it, on the administration, authentication and verification set of digital identity. We've also worked with, we're also working very close with OCR. OCR is like an organization that kind of have representatives of so many African countries, agencies in them. Most African countries are kind of represented there. And we're also working very closely to them to see how we can we invest a little bit in research. And even just recently, we just launched a couple of research on our blog, or some of the research that we do in African context to see the kind of challenge we have and how we're solving it. And we also recommend things that needs to be done. And so many times as well, we work again, very closely to kind of just advise some of the government representatives on things that needs to be done. So for instance, for me personally, I'm a member of, NASBA. NASBA is the business committee for National Assembly in Nigeria, where when laws, ease of doing business laws needs to be placed, they kind of go through NASBA, we kind of recommend some of the things that needs to be done. And I sit on the e-business side of things. And so usually most times, I always try to recommend some of the policies that needs to be changed from this perspective. So the little things we can do, we can only keep working with them, we can only keep recommending, we can only keep negotiating, we can only keep lobbying on things that needs to be done the right way. But governments globally are always very pain to the ass to work with.
Yeah, no, I completely appreciate it. And you made a comment, which I'm going to come back at, which is the little things that we can do. Well, it's the little things that you are doing that are actually opening so many doors. And it's the reason why we're here today and the reason why we've asked you to be here today. It may seem little, but for somebody that you can actually make such a big change to, it's big. So congratulations on what you are doing and the success that you are having, and I genuinely hope that more success will come from that. Please stick around. We will have a Q&A panel later on where I think we will maybe deep dive a little bit more into some of the comments that you've made. To our audience as well, please, Q&A box at the bottom, send your questions, don't be shy. Any feedback that you have, we would love to have in the chat box. And with some of the questions, if they're specific to a speaker, please do write their name. I can say that we've already got a question there. And by all means, to our speakers, if you want to answer some of these questions direct in the box, you are welcome to do so. Otherwise, we will try and address them later on. Okay, so let's move on to our next speaker, and then I think we'll have a short break. So I would like to welcome Irene Esper Metuzo Sevume. Irene, it's lovely to have you with us.
Such a pleasure.
Lovely. Yep, I can see your screen. So what I would suggest is if we can make that full screen, that would be great. I will do a little introduction to who you are and your background. So Irene is the head of business growth and PR at Diwala. Through leveraging SSI standards and blockchain technology, Diwala provides a digital platform that enables secure and efficient issuance and verification of credentials for individuals and businesses. With a passion towards digital inclusion and literacy, particularly around the value of self-sovereign identity standards and blockchain technology, Irene has spoken on various panels and conducted webinars deciphering how SSI standards and blockchain technology can be implemented in the credentialing space in Africa. It is an honor to have you with us today. And yes, I'm really excited to sort of hear what you've got to say specifically in the digital identity space as well.
Thank you so much, and it's such a pleasure to be here. And I'm actually going to build on from what Lorna just presented. So what we do as Diwala is that we are actually leveraging SSI standards to give value to a person or business digital identity. When someone talks about identity, what comes to your mind? On my case, my identity is who I am, what I have done, what I can do. Information, for example, about where I've studied, the experience I've had, my financial history, and so forth. Ideally, because this information pertains to me, it should be easily accessible to me. It should also be controlled by me. And when it comes to verification, when I share proof of this information about myself, I expect that it is easily verifiable. But that's not always the case. In 2019, I completed my master's degree, and by the time COVID hit in 2020, I was still waiting to receive my certificate and couldn't apply for some jobs. When everything closed, I am not the only one facing a challenge. I am not the only one facing a challenge. Over 1.8 billion people worldwide lack a digital identity that can prove who they are, what they have done, and what they can do. And this in itself, like myself, hinders us from opportunities we would otherwise have got if we could only prove that information about ourselves. When it comes to verification, entities are spending over to 3 to 6 months and over $15 per verification, which is a lot of money and time, and that shouldn't be the case. Worse still, information about myself is stuck in silos. It is centralized and controlled and accessed by just a few organizations and parties that issue it. This centralization in itself is what makes issuance, access, and verification of information, my information about my identity, much slower and more costly. This is where we come in as Diwala. At Diwala, we are leveraging blockchain technology and self-sovereign identity standards to, one, provide a platform that enables any institution to issue safe digital credentials, credentials that make up yours and I's identity. Then in addition, people like yourself and I, business owners that are on this conference today, we can be able to access these credentials much faster in a more secure way, whether or not we have smartphones. And when it comes to verification, as opposed to verifiers having to directly contact the issuing bodies, they can easily verify this information by a click online in seconds. What is the value that we are giving to business owners? What is the value that we are giving to individuals like you and I? Now, I don't know about the people in this conference, but I personally have a special file. And this file has my certificates, it has my transcript, it has all this important information about myself. And I keep it in a special locker because I think that that's the safest place. But if you think about it, that's not really a safe place. Because what happens if my house gets burnt? What happens if, God forbid, I'm displaced because of a war? I'll end up losing all this valuable proof about me. And when I move on into another country, I have to start all over, a new fresh life with a new identity because I can't previously prove who I am. And what we as Diwala are saying is that this special file with this proof, these credentials about my identity can be stored safely online in a way that I can easily access my credentials, whether I have them in physical hard copy, whether I'm in another country and I've left the original documents at home, I can access them with any device as long as I have an account. In this case, we call it a digital wallet. So we provide a digital wallet that enables individuals like you and I to create our digital identities, where we can receive information and credentials about ourselves, where we can easily access this information and easily share it for verification. What is the technology that we're using and why are we using it? So we apply what we call self-sovereign identity standards. And in our application, SSI functions are used to create a tamper-free digital identity based on blockchain technology. Let me break it down a little bit. When you use self-sovereign identity to log in for any service, you have control over the data you input. You have control over your identity, and you can choose who sees your information using your digital wallet, who has access to it, and you basically do not have to rely on a service provider or a third party. When it comes to data privacy, you also don't have to worry about your data being used for what it is not meant to be used. And gone are the days where you'll have to worry about putting your name, putting your marital status online because you worry about where that data is going. In SSI, information is managed in a decentralized way. And what this has done is that it has moved identity and credential management from centralized identity systems that are stuck in silos, controlled by just a few, and is giving power and control back to us. It's giving power and control back to businesses, to have control over their information, to be able to easily access it and be able to easily showcase it for verification. Again, let me use an easy example to explain how this works. So currently I have an identity card. Now that identity card is based on a centralized database. When I go to a bank teller and they want to use that identity card to verify me, the bank teller will only be able to verify me if they have access to the institution that issued to me my identity card. In worst cases, they'll use the face value to find the security features. But if you think about it, is that really safe? Especially in this day and age where almost anything can be replicated. But with SSI, if this identity card of mine was based on SSI, all I would need to do is I would first of all have the capability of easily accessing this identity card in both a digital and hard copy form. I wouldn't have to worry about losing this identity card and spending months trying to replace it. And when it comes to verification, by a click or through scanning a QR code, someone is able to verify that information. Even you, the person on this call, who may not have access to the database of the identity card provider, you can be able to access and verify me, information about myself. That is what SSI is doing. And in doing that, with the example I've just explained, you can see the amount of time, the amount of resources, the amount of money that has been greatly cut through the process of credentialing being much faster, as opposed to the slow manual processes than we know. Then because information is stored in a decentralized way, it also becomes very difficult for someone to tamper with my identity card. It becomes difficult for someone to hack information about myself, therefore giving me more privacy over my data, enabling data security while also enabling data portability where I can move with my data anywhere in the world. What is the vision of SSI? At the end of the day, we believe that you do not have to create a new digital identity each and every single time you go to another country or each and every single time you use a new service on the internet. You can have one digital identity that reflects who you are, can be verified, and you can be able to use it anywhere regardless of boundaries. As Diwala, we have tested this out, and we have also been fortunate to have over 58 institutions spanning across 9 African countries that have actually used the platform and our clients. And this showcases that there are people in the market that, yes, what we have is different. Sometimes you are called crazy, but there are people who believe in what we are providing because it showcases value. It's showcasing that credentialing can be much faster, more secure, and much easier. On my screen is a credential that has been issued through our platform, and this credential is a training credential. And what makes this different is kindly focus on the lower bit of the credential. I'll be speaking a bit about why it's designed the way it's designed. Now, on the lower bit, there's a QR code and link. Now, in a lot of African settings, to verify information about training, you'll often take 3 to 6 months or even more, depending on the institution you have to get this information from. But with the Diwala platform, when this certificate is issued to the recipient, all a verifier needs to do, one, if this certificate has been printed and is in a hard copy, they simply scan the QR code on the certificate, and then they're able to verify the information in the certificate. If this certificate is also shared in a digital form, as you can see, it's loading on my screen, you can be able to verify it by simply clicking on the verification button. And instantly, within seconds, this information is verified, as opposed to me having to call the issuing institution or having to wait for so long. I can readily get this information straight from the institution independently in a more secure and much faster manner. We understand that we are building for the African market, and we understand the challenges in the African market. And one of the biggest hindrances of the adoption of digital technologies is that not everyone has a smartphone. But we are building to create an identity for each and every one, not just the tech literate person, but even someone who may not understand tech a lot, who may not have access to a smartphone, because at the end of the day, they too need to get financial, they need to get finances at one point. They need to get that job. They need to get that healthcare that they require. And if we don't give them the power to have their digital identity, they will not get these opportunities. What are the key learnings? And this is what I'm going to conclude. In our key learnings, we have learned that as we build, it is important to be informed by the market. And when I say be informed by the market, not just the needs or the gaps that are there to be bridged in the market, but most importantly, down to behavior, down to culture. If you looked at the certificate that I earlier showcased, it has 110 signatures. Now, one would ask, why is there the need for 110 signatures? I mean, it's a digital credential that can be verified digitally. Well, the reason we put those 110 signature features there is because we have come to understand that in the culture of the African market, people trust the 110 signature aspect. It is a big element of trust and therefore a big element of adoption over technology. And that in itself clearly shows that culture and behavior are not only needs or gaps drive the adoption of digital technologies. Then there's still a huge gap when it comes to digital literacy. Today, when you talk about blockchain technology, you'll find that a lot of people are not aware of the fact that it can be applied to so many other use cases apart from crypto. So we have had to get into the market and speak to those people and showcase to them what blockchain technology can offer and tell them, you know what, blockchain technology doesn't always mean that you can be scammed, but there's actually a big value it provides. And we have also learned that in certain spaces, you need not to even mention the technology. All people want to see is, I have a pain point. What is that pain point, and how is this technology you are bringing solving the pain point I have? The moment people understand that basic level, they may not even need to know the technology behind it. So that's why I bring this up, is that as we introduce technologies for social good, we are meant to help each and everyone. We need to be aware of the levels of digital literacy and be deliberate in the way we communicate the value of the technologies we introduce. We also need to be aware of the infrastructure in place. A lot of digital systems are built with the assumption that certain infrastructure is in place or that there is money to afford that infrastructure, but it's not always the case. If we are looking to build technology that is inclusive, we need to be aware, for example, that not everyone has a smartphone. We need to be aware that even those that have smartphones, they're probably low on memory. So if I'm building an app, I need to build it in a way that it may not take so much space. Then lastly, and this is something we continue to crack our heads against, the issue of internet penetration. Internet penetration is still a big issue, and it's still a big hindrance to adoption of technologies that we're talking about. So even in our product, how we build our product, are there options that enable someone who doesn't have access to the internet to still get value from the product? At Diwala, there is a reason why we have enabled people to also download their credentials, so that in case they cannot access internet, they still have proof in form of, say, a paper that they can still use. Yes, we are moving digital, but we have to start from somewhere. We have to understand the challenges. And lastly, as actors in the space, we need to be open-minded. We need to be resilient. Creating change is something that's never easy. But if you are creating change and you believe in that change and you see that there are clear pain points, no matter how many times you fall down, I encourage you to get up, because at the end of the day, just one day, it will take just one person to understand your solution that will open up many doors for you. We are an agile and a hungry team from across the world. And funny thing is that when we hire all these people have had a story of where they have either failed to get a credential or have experienced a lot of issues when it comes to verification. So we're actually bringing minds together to solve an issue that is a global issue. And we invite you to join us. Thank you so much.
Irene, thank you so much. It was so passionate and so comprehensive. I had several notes and questions which you addressed as we were going on, and I have to say, I agree with so many comments that you've made, and a couple in particular. Blockchain is really fascinating, because I feel as though for several years it's kind of been overhyped and overused, but not explained. It's kind of been used as an entity of, oh, we have blockchain. And then there's that gap of the understanding of what it actually does. So yes, when it's great when it's used well, but it's used for the wrong gain. And I think your example about, you don't have to play on the fact that you have blockchain as much as the importance of the service that you're delivering. That is absolutely key. And another comment that you made, which I thought was really interesting, is in terms of what you were saying about sort of internet issues and delivery, because ultimately, if you think about technology and how it's thriving and at the rate it's developing, unfortunately, some states and some countries don't have the infrastructure to keep in line and in sync with that. And that's where absolutely, and I think that lets down a lot of potential that services such as what you are offering could actually do. So, for example, the fact that you're even thinking about an offline model just goes to show, hey, look, I'm not going to wait for you guys to fix the internet. We have to fix the problem first, because there is a demand and a need in order to address that. So I think that's fascinating and very inspiring.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I do hope that you will stick around for the Q&A. I have more questions and more comments, and I'm sure others will as well. Just to add, we've shared in the chat box below, if you just scroll up a little bit, the social links for Divala. So we have your LinkedIn and your website. And if it's okay with you, Irene, we've also said your LinkedIn, which I will be connecting with you very soon.
Absolutely.
And I would invite all of our guests here today to please follow and engage with all the speakers and with each other as well, in order to be able to continue this journey and the learnings beyond today's session. So I think we will have a very short break, if that's okay. I'm just going to check with Katerina to make sure that's okay. In that case, without further ado, I think we'll move on to our next speaker, if that's okay. So we have Dr. Chinonso Ngembe. Are you with us today? So lovely. Okay, so what I will do is quickly, hello. Let me introduce you. A great warm welcome to you, Dr. Chinonso Ngembe, Executive Director at the 100K Club, popularly known as the Aproko Doctor, which I would love for you to explain in a moment. Dr. Chinonso is an award-winning medical doctor, writer, actor, and influencer who has consistently impacted the health behaviors of millions of people through his digital health contents on social platforms. He's bagged, as mentioned, numerous awards locally, internationally, and he's a health ambassador for several international brands and organizations. This is interesting. He is also a knight of the ICFJ, the International Center for Journalists, a non-profit that supports truth tellers. Dr. Chinonso is the founder of the 100K Club, a non-profit with a vision to end health poverty in Nigeria and also Africa through the provision of basic access to healthcare services for vulnerable Nigerians. Please do join Dr. Chinonso, and I believe you'll be sharing your thoughts on maximizing philanthropic impacts using technology. So thank you so much for joining us today. So can I ask you, the Aproko Doctor? I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, so Aproko basically means, in this part of the world, someone who cannot mind his business. So someone puts his mouth into other people's business. I think over there, you may refer to him as a busybody. But apparently we wanted to use, I looked for a method where we do not create that boundaries between doctor and patient. So I wanted to break that down. And that's one of the reasons I use digital media to create health content. But I pass it across in such a way that it's lighthearted, it's funny, it's it's easier accepted. People are willing to share that kind of information better than other kinds of information, and I come across as their friend. And so they are willing to share health conditions. They're willing to share the health videos with their friends. And I think this all started in 2015. And currently we have about close to 3 million people following across all social media channels. So I think that's proof that this method is working. And aside from running the research on trying to see what the impact is, people have walked up to me in the street and said, "Oh, I loved your videos. They've transformed my life. I'm better knowledgeable about certain health conditions simply because of the video." So yeah, that would help you understand what a purple doctor really means.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And it's well suited for sure. Thank you so much. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you would like to share with us today. Thank you. And I'll pass the floor over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So today, I think my presentation is going to be really short because we'll basically be talking about maximizing philanthropic impacts through technology. And I started the story, I would use the lessons we've learned from 100K Club as that kind of lesson as to what we've learned and what we've been able to achieve in less than 2 years. And so one of the things I'm grateful for is the privilege of being born in this era. Why this era? Because there are a lot of things that technology has made easier. Example, social media, the apps, the ease of doing things, having this kind of communication with other people from other parts of the world. And it's wonderful what technology has been able to achieve in such a short time. And we can only be grateful, and be expectant towards the future. But then the question is, how has this technology been able to expand or maximize philanthropic impacts? And I would use the story of the 100K Club as an example. And so the 100K Club is less than 2 years old. And in less than 2 years, we've been able to touch about 2,000 people directly. And we've been able to raise about $30,000 using technology alone. As of currently, we still do not have an office, building dedicated to us. And but these and the good and philanthropic events that we've been able to achieve, is a direct indicator of just what technology has been able to do. So of course, we've all known that technology has the power to transform and empower and provide impacts to vulnerable people. And when we wanted to start the 100K Club, one of the questions and thoughts on our minds was, how do we dedicated ourselves to passing across health information, but then the next stage was, how about people who could not access this, who could not access care? They know what to do, but they need to access care. How do they access this care? Who pays for it? How do they get it? And initially we had started with ensuring that, people who are in need of healthcare bills per se, people who need money to pay their healthcare bills, will raise money, will crowdfund and, help them pay those bills. But after a while, we realized that it looks like we were pouring water into a basket because we're just trying to treat the symptoms and not trying to attack the disease. And so we decided earlier this year to move our direction, so to speak, towards preventive campaigns. And in January this year, we screened about 411 women for cervical cancer, and we treated with cryotherapy for free about 71 women who had shown signs of cervical changes, and all this was done, by the 100K Club. Like I said, with no office, no building dedicated to us, no team, and just through technology. And so how did we do it? We decided to say, okay, fine. That was just one, and let's see what we can do next. We decided to attack prostate cancer next. And for prostate cancer, we screened a couple of men, still in Nigeria, for prostate cancer, and directed the ones who we found positive, to care and, following up and all that. And like I said, all this has been done through technology. And what is major to me is ensuring that this philanthropic process, or this, this philanthropic outreach that we are trying to do is maximized. And so we realize that with a lot of NGOs, especially in this part of the world, a lot of funds that are donated to these NGOs do not directly get to the end user. So some of them are simply used to keep the oils, to keep the cogs and wheels running, and very little of that fund actually gets to the end user. For big non-profit organizations, this might not be an issue simply because they have access to more funds. But then for small non-profit, for small young nascent young profit organization like ours, it is important that every dollar that is donated to us ends up getting to the end user. And so technology in a way has helped us slim our overhead costs and ensuring that the funds that are donated is shared directly to the end user. If you look at the left of this, the left, I don't know if it's your left or my left, the left of this photo, you would see this young lady called Jane, and she's wearing a prosthetic leg. I think Jane was one of the major reasons why the 100K Club was started. And I came across Jane's story on social media after a nationwide protest that has gone, around Nigeria, so to speak. And someone shared a picture how she joined the protest and needed a prosthetic leg. And right with my phone, I just thought, how do we go ahead and do this? And I, just tweeted about it and said, oh, fine, can we help Jane raise this amount of money to help her get a prosthetic leg? And in less than 24 hours, we had raised about 3 million naira. That's about, if I'm not mistaken, about 15 to 16,000 US dollars to help her get a prosthetic. This young man in the middle needed eye surgery, and that was also done. The young lady here, of course, we all have their consent to share these photos. The young lady here had a hole in the heart that cost about 2.4 million naira, and it was donated by people we do not even know, all using the power of social media. And that's where technology, comes in. And that's what technology has been able to do. With technology, almost anyone can become a fundraiser. Technology has democratized, so to speak, the nonprofit space. And for us, for big nonprofits for big nonprofit organizations, they have the luxury of certain networks, and certain people, governors, presidents. But for, nascent young profits, non-profits like us, we do not have that luxury. And so the only social network we have is the people. And people have been able to trust us and say, okay, we believe in your cause and we'll support it. And we supported it over the years. So one of the things that technology has done is to democratize the philanthropic space. Anyone can become a fundraiser, tap into these social networks and raise money for their preferred causes. For us, we've decided to go the way of health, but for other people, there are other philanthropic projects that other people can undergo. And these are the women who joined us, who were beneficiaries of the cervical cancer screening. This is just a cross section. Of course, we had it in different locations. These are different locations, so to speak. And then technology is also, enabling people who are looking for courses. One of the things that people wonder, or people are worried about when it comes to giving is sometimes they do not know what to support. But people are saying, I think there are certain people out there who have decided that a certain portion of their income will be channeled towards charity causes or philanthropic causes, but they do not know what to support. And with the advent of technology, with the advent of social media, people from different parts of the world are supporting us. People are saying, "Oh, we love what you do," and it's giving the donors, that choice to say, "We found what this person is doing, and want to be a part of it." And we are also looking for organizations, so to speak, that are, creating impact in the world. So that's another thing that technologies helped us do. Another thing is that technology has also helped us create accountability. And we see ourselves as a nonprofit that belongs to the people. And yeah, we are just drivers for this nonprofit. And one of the things that, that we do is when you log into our fundraiser sites, you can see how much we've raised so far. And because of that, people are able to say, okay, there is some kind of accountability. You can see how much we've spent. You can see how much we've used. Our projects are there for everyone to see. And these also encourages people to, say that I see the accountability that's going on. And, because of that, of course, there are people who want to join us before now, but, they're kind of like watching and, trying to see what's happening and before they decide to jump in. But the way we go about our accountability processes and saying, yes, this is what this is what we've done. These are the people who've helped. These are the people who want to help. We tend to see that this spurs more people to action. Another thing that technology has been able to do is some donors would want to give directly to the recipients. This for here, the kind of people who donate to us majorly are the people who are, middle class. Sometimes somebody will say, okay, this particular month I'm going to give $3 to this, but I want it to go directly to this person. And fundraiser projects on the platform, and those funds go directly to the beneficiaries, and not to keep the oils and the wheels running, and to to keep the cogs and the wheels running. And that is one thing that technology has been able to help us do. And everybody keeps talking about the blockchain. Blockchain technology, and that is also important, especially for we that are other places in the world. And one of the speakers, I think Larry mentioned that especially we in Nigeria here do not have access to PayPal, and wiring money, excuse me, and wiring money through through the banks could take some time, especially when there are emergencies. And one of the things that the blockchain technology, especially cryptocurrency, we've had some donations from, certain people from around the world, and it's come via cryptocurrency. They're saying, okay, we're donating, this amount of Bitcoin, we're donating this amount of Ethereum. Do you have this wallet? And we say yes, and they share, this. They give us this particular amounts of money that they want to help support the causes with. So for the massive rise, in cryptocurrencies, there's also been an increase in people who have been adopting this particular form of giving, and it's been wonderful so far. We are looking to expand our reach, and so to speak, and take it beyond the state of Lagos and into other states. And so, of course, there's still more to be done. But currently, what is available is because of donor apathy, and some people get tired when they give, over and over and over again. One of the things that we help them do is to automate their giving. And so we say, can you, help us decide how much in a month you're fine with? And they put in their card details, and every month automatically it deducts the funds from their account. And with that, we're able to have what looks or what seems to be like a steady stream of income that helps us still reach out to more people without ensuring that a lot of this money is, wasted in, ensuring, that the lights are on and all that. And a lot of the people who are in the 100K club are volunteers. I think only about 2 or 3 people in our team is on a salary basis. Everyone else, including myself, is purely on volunteer basis. We do not get any form of remuneration for our services. And, we simply kept on by the motivation of what good that we are doing. And we are able to achieve this because of the ease that technology is, giving us. And so what lessons have we learned so far? One of the things is that accountability. In as much as it's easy to say that technology has democratized everything, and anyone else can, anyone in particular can be a fundraiser, it is also important to note that it is key, and that accountability is key to ensuring that you retain and you keep the trust of these people. Yes, it's democratized, but in order for people to trust you, it's almost like a two-way street. So I show you exactly what I've been doing, and because of that, you trust me and you're able to, give me your funds to be able to help other people. Fundraising should be democratized, simply because there is only so much a lot of these other NGOs can do. And in developing countries, especially like Nigeria, it is important that we reach out to as many people as we can. There are other people, there are other causes out there that, can be reached. There are other states, and, other people can start up certain projects in their own community, and they don't need to have, certain structures in place. All they just need is that drive and that goal and the willingness to do that, and with technology, that's possible. And the focus should be on impact. It is not enough to say, oh, we have this amount of followers on social media. It's how many people have you impacted, in real life. And fundraising can be easier. We've shown that it's easy, and this is only the beginning for us as the 100K Club. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. I have to say, it's interesting, some of what you've mentioned, especially when it comes to blockchain and traceability, because in terms of the charity sector, and in terms of the donations, there is so much distrust out there in the world today. So one of the things, Dr. Chinonso, that you mentioned was the ability to allow donors to give direct to, the person who it's for, or to the cause that it's for, without having to worry too much about an intermediary or, you know, giving it through a charity that's going to give it on, you know, to a partner that's going to deduct the costs and things as well. So it's quite interesting, and I think it's quite important, some of the key points that you've highlighted about giving, about traceability, about impact, because it's very easy as a donor to say, right, I've donated, I feel good, and I've done my part. But often that's where that experience ends, and that's where that journey ends. And if you think about the impacts and what else can be done and what else can be shared, it's just such a shame that more projects and more organizations aren't adopting the same philosophy that you are. But equally, it's a bit of a double-edged sword in that they have a lot of red tape, bureaucracy, the politics, often, you know, and every country and every state will have that within themselves, and the costs. And it's interesting that you mentioned that a lot of people that are working with your organization are volunteers, but you shouldn't have to be either, because at the end of the day, what you're doing it's a full-time job, it's hard work, but it's incredible to see that you are dedicating so much of your own time to this, for sure.
Thank you. One of the major reasons why we decide to not get paid for our work is if our donors can trust us in ensuring that we give this money to the people who actually need it. Our part in ensuring that it gets to them is ensuring that we reduce the amount of, you know, cogs in wheels that, you know, before all that, and ensure that if this person is donating $100 to this person, at least $90 should get to that person. You know, of course, there are, you know, other things that, you know, should be paid for, but we just try and say, okay, let this be our contribution to society as a person until we're able to solve health as a problem in Nigeria.
And I think that level of transparency is refreshing, because admin costs are a reality of a charity. But unfortunately, a lot of charities and organizations are forced to seemingly abuse this, and perhaps abuse is not the right word. It's more, in order for them to be able to deliver what they want to do, they have to eat into that. And it's a shame, because then that goes down to 50, 45% of the donations. So I love that you have that transparency and this determination to ensure that at least 90% of it is going to go to the end user. And that's a great philosophy to continue to go by.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lovely. Okay, so please do stick around for the Q&A, if that's okay, because I think Dr. Shinonsa, there'll be a lot more in terms of comments and questions. I think we will have lots in hopefully coming through in the Q&A box as well. And if that's the case, then please feel free to also answer these direct if you feel comfortable. We are now going to go to Collins Jacobs. Collins, are you with us? You there?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, sorry. I'm looking at you twice. I think we've got two sort of logged in as Collins Jacobs here, so it's fine. As long as I have the actual Collins Jacobs, that's absolutely fine. Thank you so much for joining us today. So Collins Jacobs is a creative generalist specializing in business product development and management, an atypical thinker who consistently generates innovative solutions to complex problems, and a prolific management strategist recognized for diverse experiences across a variety of industries. So I see that you are a business professional with over 12 years of experience of profound exposure in strategic planning, product development, business development, and process optimization, client management, communications, journalism, gained from across working in private sector, public, regional, and international platforms. So you have a wealth of experience, I can see. And your recent work experience spans working in Nigeria, South Africa, Malawi, and Angola. As a business development lead at Wella Health, which is where you are, I believe, head of business development, you are responsible for growing customer acquisition, driving insurance adoption through strategic partnerships and business approach. I hope I have that right, Collins. If I've missed anything, or if you'd like to add anything, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. You have said everything correctly. Hello to everyone who is on this webinar, to other panelists and participants. It was quite, I think it's a huge pleasure, let's start with that, to have me be here, have me to talk about the work that we do at Wella Health. If you look at health-seeking behavior in Africa, you'd understand that significantly more than 70% of Nigerians especially would spend out of pocket for their healthcare needs. And this would usually drive people to poverty. And when you look at the number of persons who can access health insurance, we have like a 3% of the entire population doing that. And that 3% comes from rather mandatory health insurance that is provided by employers. So you find out that a significant proportion of the population do not have access to quality healthcare that doesn't cost so much. And the informal sector would be large in that percentage. So in examining this, Wella Health about 5 years ago, whilst creating a solution that helps pharmacies and healthcare delivery institutions manage patients' profile, discovered that a number of cases or reports or claims in that regard, treatment when it comes to healthcare needs centered around malaria and common illnesses, right? So together, our co-founders thought that, okay, why not we have a small pocket of plans that speaks specifically to the health needs of Nigerians and Africans in general, when you consider that malaria is endemic in this part of the world, and break down the cost so that the people can afford it. Yes, there is affordability on one side, and there is access on the other side of things. So in terms of affordability, we're able to create a plan that today costs about $1, right? For people to be able to access care for malaria, common illnesses like cold, cough, and all of those domestic illnesses. But then, yes, they can afford to. How do they gain access? We looked at the healthcare delivery spectrum. We find a set of people known as community pharmacists. We understand that they are usually the sort of call, depending on where you're looking at it from, at the community level when people need to obtain medical care. Before now, we'll refer to them as chemists or talk shops where people will buy medications, and regulations have really helped to up the standard at that level. So we went into partnership with the Association of Community Pharmacists in Nigeria to plug in pharmacies, and today we have 1,800 of them who are able to deliver access to this healthcare. So what that means is that when somebody is down with malaria, common illnesses, instead of traveling far to hospitals due to infrastructure deficits, they could easily connect with us, and we would connect them to a pharmacy near them, and they will be able to access tests, importantly, and treatment for their malaria and other plans. But again, in doing this, remember that our goal at Wella Health is to make affordable health care possible for everyone in Africa, with our focus on Nigeria at the moment. It's the issue of purchasing power, if that's the right word to use. It's the issue of people now being able to reach into their pockets and even buy these health plans, right? So we, over time, looked at what can we do to extend the coverage and ensure that those who would struggle with being able to afford that $1 or being able to spend that $1 for their health plans can actually still also have cover. So we designed what we've called Partnership for Good, and the goal is towards universal health care for all Nigerians. So I had said this earlier about the statistics, so I'm going to move past that slide. So what Partnership for Good seeks to do is collaborate with corporate entities within the private and public sector with a goal to providing 1 million Nigerians with basic health coverage over the next 1 year. We started this project in January of 2022, and we have been able to drive this partnership significantly, because when you look at, like I said earlier, the type of plans that we have, they are about making sure that they speak specifically to the health needs of Nigerians. Have cash back, so that when you have issues that escalate beyond malaria or typhoid and you need to get to the hospital, we also provide a cashback system that allows for these persons to be able to access quality medical care. So as part of being able to deliver this affordability, one of the other challenges we saw was tangibility, right? So we were able to come up with a malaria health card that puts tangibility into the hands of these users so that we leverage technology to do so. So we designed a card that allows people to be able to sign up to our plans via a USSD code, which can be accessible via a feature phone or even a smartphone. So when you consider technology and internet penetration, you see that this allows us to be able to further deliver the access part of it. So with this malaria health card, we're able to now create a plan that allows corporates to be able to spend towards providing healthcare as a means of corporate social responsibility towards the communities that they serve or communities that they have vested interest in. So what we do is basically enter into partnership arrangement with these corporate entities, would share with them the plans that we have. They would indicate the communities that they want to reach and the quantity of the plans that they want to share and for what duration. So we have monthly plans, we have quarterly plans, we have 6 monthly plans, and we have annual plans, right? So when they indicate any of the plans that they want and in the quantity that they want and duration, we're able to plan and organize around the communities, go down to the communities, create the awareness process, talk to them about why we are there, and be able to activate their plans for them and connect them to this healthcare service. Over the course of the last 7 months since we started, we have been able to provide coverage for 5,000 plus Nigerians through this partnership with a number of corporate organizations in the FinTech sector and in the power energy sector who have partnered with us. We are still in continuous talks with other corporate and individuals as well who constantly express interest to also key into this drive to provide 1 million Nigerians with affordable healthcare. The role that we play is to provide the technology, and what we also do with such partnership is to take out a significant part of the cost so that more people can enjoy this access when we have a corporate entity buying in. Like I said, our goal is to reach 1 million Nigerians. We want to do so by December 12, 2022, which is the date that the World Health Organization has set for the commemoration of universal health coverage across the world. And we're hoping that we're able to consolidate on the gains we had in this last 7 months and be able to continue to expand such partnerships, ensuring that more Nigerians and indeed Africans can get access to quality healthcare that is affordable and that doesn't necessarily have to come from out of their pockets, right? And we are hoping that the impacts would create a type of conversation around with development partners, with government agencies, private entities, and the community at large to see why it is important that people have access to healthcare. And when we get feedback from those that have benefited from our healthcare plans and they share how much value the healthcare plans have meant to them, it further helps us to appreciate the work that we do and help our partners to appreciate the work that we do and be willing to commit to more work to making sure that we are able to reach the goal. So for us, we are about, again, affordable healthcare. We'll continue to do that, whether it's through partnership for good or through creating simplistic plans that are cost effective, that those that can afford it so that they'll continue to enjoy better health. Thank you for listening. Continue to enjoy the web.
Thank you so much, Collins. That was brilliant. And I have several comments and questions, which I think we'll probably come back to later on, because one of the key points that we keep coming back to, or I keep coming back to, is sort of roadblocks and what the government is or isn't doing in order to be able to allow us execute these services. So if you are able to stick around, we'll be having a very sort of, I think, quick fire Q&A shortly, if that's okay. But thank you so much. That was brilliant. And thank you for everything that you are doing and what you are actually delivering. It's certainly paving the way for others to follow suit. So thank you so much, Collins, for that. Okay,
thank you too.
Lovely. Yes, I can see that you are online. Dr. Park Wasi Sefa Frimpong, are you with us?
Hello, I'm here.
Hello, hi, hello. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Prakwasi Sefa-Frimpong. I hope I've pronounced that right.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's fine. You did. Yeah, you did all right.
Olawale gave me some help, I'm not going to lie.
Okay, that's fine.
Dr. Sefa-Frimpong is a public health-focused medical practitioner with a bachelor's in psychology and a bachelor of medicine and a bachelor of surgery.
Yeah.
You have 3 degrees and a master's in public healthcare as well. Amazing. His credentials have enabled him to seek or participate in new initiatives that enhances healthcare in Africa. He's provided project support on all aspects of research, data collection, monitoring and evaluation, and quality control. He's got prior experience with program implementation and management, public policy advocacy training and strengthening health systems. As a member of the Health Impact Fund project team, I believe your main goal and intents are to provide a complementary mechanism for the development of pharmaceutical breakthroughs, particularly those aimed at impoverished patients in Africa who cannot afford expensive medicines and Medicare. That's incredible. It's an absolute honor to have you here with us today, and over to you. And by all means, if I've missed anything, any gaps in your background, feel free to elaborate.
No, it's actually an honor to be here as well. And you haven't missed anything. I think that is enough. And previously, I mean, going through today's program, I realized that there's been a lot of digitalization, how to put data together. But so it's actually perfect that I'm the last on the list, because I'm going to talk about medication. I'm going to talk about how, you know, irrespective of the conversations that we're having about how we're going to like keep data, how we're going to count people, how we're going to be able to have those sort of resources, what is going to help us to also live longer, you know, increase our age expectancies, etc., especially in very impoverished parts of Africa, in the sub-Saharan Africa. And so let me try and share my screen. Okay, so the topic that I'm going to take you through today is the promotion of African pharmaceutical manufacturing to create affordable medicines through the use of the HIF model. And the HIF model is literally the Health Impact Fund model. And so with the Health Impact Fund, we will talk about the problems, right? And so the main idea is the innovation assets, right? And so when we talk about medication in the summary and simple, we look at, for example, in sub-Saharan Africa, from the west of Africa to east and south in, how we are having issues with medication, especially, and also with an example of COVID, during COVID, we saw that we had a lot of issues with the vaccines, where Africa was lagging behind when it came to vaccines, and we had to wait on the first world countries to navigate and send us vaccines before we're able to even start vaccinating our own population. And so the innovation is how companies that manufacture can focus on products based on how we're able to build our own manufacturing within Africa, and how that can help us to be able to also navigate the pricing of medication. And so we'll look at the long-term solution, right? Which is how the Health Impact Fund comes in. And so it's more to do with how do we get manufacturers, right? Especially in Africa, to manufacture in Africa. And so, like I was giving an example, I'll take malaria, for example, from in the west of Africa. Most of the medication that comes in to the west of Africa is from India, is from China, and other parts of Asia. And it's very expensive. Most of the time, also the efficacy of those medication does not really work, you know, because it's commercial based. And so looking at it, we buy a very expensive medication. We have to import it from India or China, and then it comes to Africa. And yet, even though with all that, we still have issues with efficacy. And so the main idea is, how do we come together and build sort of manufacturing in Africa, find places, find spots, determine how we'll be able to navigate and be able to build already existing infrastructure, which is in manufacturing in the pharmaceutical realm, to be able to produce such medication, which is going to be effective for our people. And so the long-term solution is viable, but also we are also asking the why. Why are we looking at building this sort of infrastructure in Africa, and why the pharmaceuticals should align with us for us to be able to move this goal forward? And so you look at how for pharmaceuticals, it will align with their corporate incentives. They will use existing effective mechanisms to support already in innovation. It will also encourage firms to think holistically from development to delivery, and also provide support for new treatments for important diseases and increasing global health security. And so once we're able to address the whys of why we're doing this, then we'll be able to be in positions to move forward. It's very important that we're looking at digitalization, for example, but it's also important that we look at medication, because without effective and medication that is working, that is helping people to live lives and be able to expand our life expectancy, then we are not going to be able to have the manpower to be able to move forward. And so the immediate goal or the immediate idea is to come up with, how do we solve this issue? And so we've come up with a pilot program, which is going to be a 5-year pilot program of $100 million, in which 3 or 4 projects will be selected. And so the idea is each project will extend the use of novel or existing underused drug to low-income countries, for example. And so the proponent will be getting maybe 5 countries in parts of Africa, maybe one in the east, one in the south, one in the west, one in the north, for example, and having pharmaceutical companies come on this pilot scheme, where the willingness is for the firms to compete on the basis assessed on the health benefit. And so the ability to use assessed health benefit to determine the financial rewards. And so the pilot also bring health benefits to patients. And that is the main idea of the pilots. So we'll take, for example, an example of medication. So let me give you a typical example. We have oxfenazole, which treats river blindness. And if you look at Africa, from Senegal across to Ethiopia, from Malawi to Angola, about 30 countries in Africa are affected by river blindness. And this is an issue, but yet we do not even have medication to effectively treat river blindness, for example. And so what sort of products might the pilot entail? And so an example is creating or building or manufacturing oxfenazole in certain countries within Africa for that medication to be able to, for example, to treat a river blindness. We're also looking at, so you can ask the question, where are we at the moment? And at the moment, we've had extensive discussions with pharmaceutical companies. We've also had general discussions with other health impact organizations in Africa. And we've also been having conversations with other stakeholders on how we can take this fund and make this pilot as an example that this can work if we can be able to build our own long-term sustainable manufacturing plants in Africa, or expand on the existing plants that are already in Africa. Then we'll be able to move forward when it comes to, for example, time for us to battle and look for vaccines, like we had issues with COVID, for example. And so we've been having interactions, and interactions have been really going well. And so the discussions are structured on partnership with private sector firms, also evaluation at the core, also looking at innovative finance, and establishing a model in which all lives are valued equally, but focuses on the poorest first, because they are the ones who are not able to afford the medication. And then we create a model for a global cooperation on other issues like climate change, which is also very important. And so what the fund really is going to be about is highlighting us away from why we are so dependent on imports of medicine. And also, what is the access? Imported medicines are often slow to arrive and very expensive, whereby we have local manufacturing that can deliver better access to the products that people need. Why don't we look at that, building or expanding on the local manufacturing already, which is in place? And so if you look at the price variation across 7 to low middle income countries for generic pharmaceutical medication, we tend to see that the prices are often 5 to 30 times higher than the lowest international price, in the way that this says that medication that is, for example, being produced in India is probably costing India, the manufacturing plant in India, maybe $10 to produce, right? But when it comes to Africa, the purchasing price is maybe $150 to buy. And so looking at the gap between production and purchasing, it's a very big gap, because now it's been produced in India or in China, for example, and it's coming into Africa. There's exports, there's taxes that are also being put on the medication. And so we can cut all this by looking at how, if the manufacturing is being done at home, and then once the manufacturing is being done at home, then we know that we don't have to be thinking about tax. We don't have to be thinking about transportation to transport it from the Far East, for example, and bringing it into Africa. And that will also already help our people to be able to be able to afford those sort of medication. And so looking at the pilot, or the idea of the pilot is to try and advance both manufacturing access with a reward divided between competitors. And so, like I said earlier, if we have probably 5 manufacturing plants who are ready and willing to get into this pilot for us to have that initiative, then they would manufacture the medicine in Africa, which is being produced on the African continent, and they will sell it wholesale at the cost of production as well, without no tax, without no transportation, without all the other things that it needs to be brought from overseas, for example. And so if the reward of the fund is 50 million and 5 manufacturers enter, then we are going to look at how the 5 manufacturers who are going to enter the competition, or who are going to enter the pilot, how they're going to navigate and how they're going to look at building the sort of medication that are in dire need in Africa that we can produce. And so the benefits are the manufacturers will increase capacity and build the know-how. It also creates high quality employment, because not in the sense that we are creating or manufacturing our own medication on the planet, or on the continent. We're also going to create employment. The manufacturers will also focus on products that are currently overpriced and undersupplied. So we'll look at medication that are not being produced in Africa, and they will make sure that they manufacture that. What are the benefits? The patients will also benefit from low price access to quality medication. The payments or purchasing will also be very competitive, and the manufacturers also have incentives to discourage large wholesale markups, because it's going to be competitive. And so the strategy is, we're developing this proposal now to seek and also to bring in partners who can help to advance this cause forward. And we're seeking also supportive funding for the Health Impact Fund African pilot from governments, non-governmental, OECD, etc., to be able to move forward with this. So the discussion is going to be centered around how we have structured as partnership with private sector firms, how we evaluate how the pilot will work or revolve, and also establish a model in which all lives are valued equally, irrespective of the focus on what people can afford and what people cannot afford. But then medication should be if you can afford or you cannot afford. And so the incentive is more to look at how are we going to move forward and how are we going to be able to be in positions whereby we will provide and make sure that medication is accessible to everybody. And so if we look at that, we'll look at how we're going to have innovations and how we're going to make sure that valuing the survival and the health of all human beings are equal. And so that is very important. I will end by saying that the main idea and the main innovation is developing drugs that are very substantial in the market and which will be able to help, and also making pharmaceutical innovators and their profits from markups. But then when we look at medication in Africa, we're looking at positions whereby we're feeling like if we're in a position that we can provide or produce or manufacture our own medication that will be affordable, then we'll be able to reach half of what our initiative is. Thank you.
My apologies. It's usually me telling other people that they're on mute. I apologize for that. I was just saying thank you so much. That's incredible and a really, really good point in terms of the actual medical access that you're able to facilitate for sure. Now, I do have some questions that I wanted to, some comments to touch upon from what you discussed, which I think it would make more sense to do in the setting with everybody. So with that in mind, I think let's just start our panel session. So if I could kindly ask our speakers and panelists to, if you are all still with us, please turn on your camera and mute yourselves for now. And I think it would be interesting to address some of the questions for sure. So while they're doing that, Dr. Parr, going back to you in terms of the point that I made earlier about infrastructure and how government can both be a roadblock, but also be quite pivotal in helping ease issues and access. How has that impacted the work that you're doing, Dr. Parr?
So that's a good question. You know, when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry, I think we all know that it's a very hard market to even start having conversations because our world revolves around pharmaceuticals. They have a lot of global muscle, a lot of global financial power, a lot of global attributes as well. And so it's not been easy being in a position whereby you are coming on board to say, look, how do we produce medication which are very cheap, which are like affordable for a group of people that cannot afford? Because then in a sense, it means that they have to now look at their profits from their markups, right? And how much money they're making. And so, for example, if medication is mass produced for $20 and is being sold, for example, for $500, how do they look at that to be able to say, look, how do we cut our margins? How do we look at how much we're making? And it comes back to humanity, right? Are we looking at the margins that we're making, or are we looking at serving humanity? And so it's not been an easy conversation that we're making, or an easy conversation that we're prodding, but we're making progress. And I guess you need to start from somewhere, you know? And so far as the conversations have started, then at least we're making progress. And so there is progress, but then there is also a lot of work that needs to be done.
I know, absolutely. And I hope it's safe for me to say this, but I do feel as though Africa in particular as a continent has suffered at the hands of several of these political, bureaucratic, profit-making, decision-making. And what you are all doing is really instrumental in getting that, you know, gone and away, but unfortunately it is still there in some capacity. And, you know, having Olawale and others with a medical background, you will all know far too well from having trained in other countries and other areas and practice in other states as well, how there is a clear disparity in terms of access and control, for sure. So how are you using that experience where you see how things are done elsewhere, or how they're not done, or how you would want to do them differently? How is that helping the work that you are all doing? And I'm putting that out to everybody on the panel.
I could take that one first. I think because people believe in something when they see it. When they see that it's actually working, or when there are use cases, even though the use cases may be different and not customized to the market, as long as the idea can be seen, it can be touched, it can be felt, it's sort of buying. So today, at least in my country, in Uganda, previously when you talked about blockchain, it was considered something, you know, different, something quite unique and rare, and, you know, someone would ask if you're talking about Greek. But now when we go back and we are talking to the people in the decision-making seats, and we're telling them, look, countries like Estonia are running on the blockchain. We're telling them, you know, countries like Kenya are integrating blockchain into their systems and their strategies. There is that openness, and then the work begins. Yeah.
Brilliant. Would anybody else like to comment on that as well?
I think I would side with Irene. There's a lot of there is a lot of traditionality in the way we, especially in Africa, see things. And you know, we are also very traditional in a way that we don't like change. And so anything that we're not used to, or anything that we feel like is different, and it's not the norm that we're used to. I mean, from our grandparents, from our parents to the elders, it's like, why this change? You are very young, or what is this new idea? We don't understand it, you know? And so anything that is not being understood, there's a big pushback. We don't want it, you know what I mean? Even irrespective of, even if it's an amazing or an awesome venture, there's always a pushback to say, look, we're not ready for this and we don't need this. But I think also we need to also still keep pushing and pushing till some of the walls will break, you know, and we need to keep knocking and knocking till some of the walls will break. And so if you look at what Irene is doing, what Larry is doing, what Olawale is doing, what Collins is doing, it's a different thing to our terrain, you know. Yeah. But I'm sure that they would have the same stories to say, look, in the beginning there was a push, but then they kept pushing and they kept knocking the door. And by so doing, definitely the door will eventually break, and then we'll get in. And so there's change, but the change will take time. But I think the focus is we need to focus on what we're doing, and we need to keep knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking and knocking so it's open.
I'm going to ask then, for each and every instance, an example, you know, from Lonre to Saeed to Irene Olawale and Dr. Parr. Who's behind that door? Who's behind that door that you need to get past? Who's that roadblock for you? And what's the ideal scenario that person or that entity can sort of give you to allow you to move to the next step and the next level? Lanre, do you want to have a think about that? Or
I think who's behind the door is dependent on the scenarios or the situation. It could be resources, it could be even the willingness of the government folks to embrace that kind of change. It could be ideology, right? It could just be we saying, well, this is how we do things and we just want to stick to them. And when you drew them and you ask, why do you want to stick to them? There's really no reason. You're just like, well, this is how my great grandfathers used to do things, and I just want to like keep on with that same tradition, right? So it could be culture, it could even be education. It gets to a point where we probably need to change some of our curriculum to embrace some of these new technologies and new ways in which we do things. So it's so many things, right? We can't exhaust it, but depending on, so for instance, for my space or my field, or I mean, some of the challenges that we face every day that we need to keep knocking, is more on the governance side of things. It's more on even those that are meant to provide the infrastructure, giving us the infrastructure. It's more on the infrastructure side of things, more of having people invest in infrastructure in the region. And I think Irene mentioned, I think in her presentation, she mentioned things around internet penetration, mobile penetration. There's no way we can't leap over some level of technology if we do not have a great deal of internet penetration, if we do not have a great deal of mobile penetration. And when the internet penetration, how accessible, how expensive are they? How easy is it for people to be able to afford the basic things before? Because technology can't just solve itself. You need to be able to access technology services using internet, right? Can people afford the basic subscriptions that we need to afford? So many things are behind the door, right? It just varies depending on which sector or which space you play in.
Saeed, how about what about in your instance? What's behind that door that you need to get past to succeed? You're on mute. Sorry, you just did what I did. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's okay. Okay, I share your ideas highlighted before. The knowledge and security are the big problems for many aspects of all what has been highlighted since the beginning. That's why I'm sorry for my state is not all right to speak in details, because I'm still feeling not all right. The state of Volupolis Capital is about business to business and business to government. The setup is done to correct something where information is considered as the power. So the knowledge is something very important to take and to empower people to innovate, create, and collaborate. And that's why we set up this really heavy ecosystem powered by AI, because again and again, information is power. So, and the information, not a lot of people can use and interpret and use the information in the right way. And on the other side, having information is just the beginning, to empower all the initiatives I have been listening to is really very interesting. And I will be in touch with every one of you, because our contribution is from the top level, meaning opening doors, breaking walls, and hitting even what I call the problems of business to government, because all the initiative, healthcare is sovereign industry, and it's a responsibility of the government, not of the private sector only. Absolutely. And all these, the private sector to step in to correct what is wrong, and mainly, and you will all agree with me, information and knowledge is the big problem. So the resistance you have with governments is first information. They are comfortable in their 19th century thinking, and from there you need to hit. And as we say, healthcare is the biggest problem. Finance, financial inclusion, economic inclusion, social inclusion are really very important. And to do that, really, we have been building something really going on the opposite of what we consider in the business to business or business to government is the three revolutions. One is on FDI, or foreign direct investment intelligence. So deploying a maximum information, maximum insights, maximum even reports ready to go for your case for healthcare with the AI. You can really map out in 2 hours, not 1 year, all the information you need for the best companies who can go with you in the generic today. You will not wait 1 year. For the same thing for collecting money or donations, but I believe more in project finance and financial structuring, because these sectors need billions, that's millions. And to do that, you need to be in the system. And that's what we have been doing in the last 2 years. And the right side for it is our initiative to set up Volupolis Philanthropies in September in Morocco for Africa and the Middle East, and to run all these initiatives, first about the data, knowledge, equipping really innovators, creators, and allow more collaborations for strict projects. And for that, the bottom line is access to secure and reliable projects, bankable projects that we are providing. So that's the network that we are really providing, and as we are talking multi-billion-dollar projects. And the last three components, money management and markets, we lead really the AI or advanced intelligence revolution, plus the delivery, because delivery is key. We speak about pharma or about financial inclusion. You need projects to be really deployed in the correct way with the right money, enough money to do it. And all these, for one thing, is the job revolution. We need really millions of jobs and secure, high-paid jobs, and data and analysis is the best sector, I think, of the future, like with the digital transformations and all these aspects that we can develop all together during another conversation.
It's amazing that we're all, to have brought so many of you together and to have feedback such as you will be getting in touch with some of the other organizations today. That in itself is absolutely worth it. And I do genuinely hope that you will collaborate with one another moving forward. Dr. Pal, there is a question in Q&A which you're welcome to answer live now, or you can answer it in the actual box. If you wanted to have a think about it, which is, does Health Impact Fund have private or public partnership within Sub-Saharan in ensuring that in the long run, medications can be produced and delivered at low cost?
That is part of what we are actually doing. And so, like Said just said, looking at collaborations, looking at all the other companies or organizations that we can partner with, so that the end goal at the end of the day will be achieved. And so that's what we're doing. So we're creating also inroads, we're creating partnerships with other NGOs or government or non-governmental organizations, whereby the same idea is the vision, the same idea is the aim, the same idea is the objective. And so that will be able to take us forward into achieving what our goals are. And so it's a social inclusion. However, we will work together to be able to reach where we need to go. That is all that matters. Yeah.
Absolutely. So one other question in Q&A, actually there's two for you, Olawale. One which I think if you're happy to answer direct in terms of considering the Nigerian landscape, how can we start promoting or advocating for more inclusion for persons with disabilities? What I will do is allow you to answer that direct in the box, because there's another question which I actually want to come to you with, which also comes from Ronald, who asked the first question, which is, what can we learn from the UK as one of the leading nations in terms of assistive technology, and how can we implement that across? Let's be honest, we may be advancing, but I think there's still a lot the UK can learn and will learn for sure. And this, I think, is more about what can the UK do to support the development and implementation of assistive technology in other countries that could benefit largely from it, such as Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I think it's really important, because when we talk about social inclusion, one of the first things that I thought about when I was analyzing the whole the UK landscape was the mind shift. A mind shift has to occur. When I mean by mind shift, it means that the way people see things should be different. The mind shift, having that mind shift means that you're going to be having a different approach, to taking care of people with disabilities in Nigeria. And this question is actually the same that was made, the first question you mentioned. There's the mentality that people who are living with disabilities are unable, they are outliers. They are a different class. They are the least of the least, right? So you have people who are poor, extremely poor, and then you now have those who are living with disabilities and are now extremely poor. So they are basically neglected. So let's just put it like that. So they are in all manner, and this is me trying, to put it lightly, they are usually disenfranchised from the system. So it's bad enough that, in countries like Nigeria, the system is already against you, the odds are against you. But when you're completely disenfranchised from, from even the government that is supposed to protect you, that is where the problem is. So I think the mind shift has to occur and let people know that the fact that you have a disability or people living with disabilities are humans like us. They have the same things like us. They have the ability to access and do the same things that we do, and they have the same capacity, given the same, when we are able to, leverage technology to take care of their needs, they will be able to create the same output like we will, all right? So when that mind shift begins to occur in, developing countries, because this is the mind shift that happens or that we see in places like the UK, the US, in other countries in Europe. So when this mind shift comes, to developing countries in Africa, for example, in Nigeria, that mind shift will start from the people. And it's not about the government, really. I wouldn't say that the government is the first place, it is the people, right? Because the fact is that the fact remains that it is the people that shape the government. The people, are the larger determinant for what will happen. So if we have people, advocating for the rights of, people who are living with disabilities, and that's high degree of disabilities, and we begin to have, proper advocacy for them. And then the government can now, the government would definitely, when they're at the height of every advocacy, the government begins to intervene. So so when the intervention comes, then we can begin to effect and see the necessary changes that we are looking for.
Absolutely. I concur with that, and I think several of our panelists today would also agree. Would anybody like to have any, because I think, education, knowledge, it resonates from what a lot of you, Syed in particular, have actually been saying, and there has to be a level of responsibility from decision makers, and whether that's government or private companies that have either monopolized or own a space that is being utilized as a service, then absolutely that onus is upon them to take responsibility for and I would be interested in any final thoughts really quickly before we wrap up, touching upon the idea behind knowledge and education being quite paramount in the work that you're doing, both for service users and government.
My thoughts would be, when we are engaging with service providers, service users, the government, let's sit in their shoes. Let's think about them like we individuals. Think about the first time someone told you something was really, really great. You didn't jump onto it. You asked questions. You wanted to try it out. You are probably difficult, and you probably sent away the person who was trying to introduce that to you. At the end of the day, whether we are in government, whether we're using a product, whether we are a potential client, we are human beings. And at the heart of human beings is the need to understand. So when people ask questions, the people that are in this space trying to implement these crazy new technologies, we should smile and answer those questions. Because when we answer those questions, when we help people understand, when they understand, the change is inevitable. So that's what we need to do at the end of the day.
I love that. And Irene, I need a TED talk from you. I think you're so inspiring. Please share any future conferences and events that you're definitely going to be taking part in, because I just sit here and I just listen to you. You're so inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to comment about education and knowledge?
Yeah. As I highlighted, the supercluster we are setting up in Morocco has a dedication to what I call the knowledge triangle, education, talent management, research and innovation, and research and development in general. So as you mix the business, the research and the adaptation of information in general. And this will be the first, I will say, cluster or supercluster fully dedicated to economic development and foreign direct investments, but with the backup of a startup or an entrepreneurial ecosystem, all really steered by AI, because you need to go fast, you need to use the latest technologies and the latest tools for decision making to go very quick, but also to access to the market, to know who is growing, who is developing in Africa or in Europe, who is moving to Africa, so as you have this decision making done very quickly. The second point is about talent and skill development. That's very, very important. And I'm happy to announce that in the UK, since you mentioned the UK, we are now in advanced really talk about the setup of a center of excellence for scale AI for economic development and foreign direct investment. So to support all these matters in Africa from the above, really with big programs, with big contracts, and the beauty in it through the Robotics philanthropies is 10% of the income after tax and so on. We go to the philanthropic side to support startups, innovation, and creation of jobs, and all these matters related to education, talent management, and research.
Perfect, thank you very much. Larry, anything that you'd like to add? Or Dr. Pa, any final comments?
I think my comment would be on, again, like you said, I think Irene really did a great job summarizing almost every single thing. But I think my comment would be on, we've been intentional as a region to invest in the needed infrastructure and knowledge, because there seems to be like a huge knowledge gap between where we want to be and where we are right now. So I think we need to be like really intentional, and this could be we lobbying on private sectors to like heavily invest in it, or having a lot of fun for startups that are into infrastructure building, data side of things or educational side of things, because there's no way we can, again, because all these things just kind of like, we need to invest in the people in the region. Personally, I kind of believe that the greatest investment are the individuals. Even if you have like the best infrastructures, you have the best skyscrapers and physical buildings, if you do not invest in the people that stay there, it's probably going to be useless. But if you invest in the people that stay in the region, then somehow they will know how to build a skyscraper at some point, right? So whatever we need to do, we just need to, as a people, we need to come together to see how we can directly invest in the people that live in the region. And that's why I kind of like almost what everybody is doing here, and the panel, especially those in the health sector, because it's almost like investing directly in the people, yeah? So those are like my last comment. Whatever we do, we try to come up with initiatives, programs, support companies, support startups that are both investing in infrastructure, education, and also the people that live in the region. I think at that point, economic prosperity would probably spring up.
Sorry, I was muted again, sorry. Any final comments, Dr. Pa?
I think in conclusion, I think we are all aligned in the same way, in the direction that we're moving. It's just to make sure that we are adding value to people, adding value to the population, adding value to the race, and those that are below the threshold, we also elevate them, right? And so we make sure that resources are there for them. We make sure that those that cannot afford medication can get it. We make sure that infrastructure is in place. We make sure that there's accessible internet, there's accessible healthcare, etc. And so I think by looking at all those, we have to also look at how we build infrastructure, how we make sure that people are educated in a sense, how people are also come together and we are able to move together towards the same goals or ideas. And so I think more or less to do with how we as a people, irrespective of wherever dimensions that we find ourselves or whatever industry that we see ourselves, it's at the end of the day, it's how we are growing people and how we are building people. And so the most important thing is how we come together and make sure that we reach the same goals that we need to reach.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much, Dr. Parth, and to all of our speakers that have joined us today. Everybody at home, wherever you are, thank you once again for joining today's conference and discussions. And just a final reminder again that we have recorded this session and it will be shared with you hopefully next week. And please check our website, the dkv.global website for Deep Knowledge Group, for more details on our work as well as upcoming projects. We have several webinars and conferences coming up that you might be interested in joining, including one on FinTech, another on food security, which will be taking place in the next month or so. Also, please, if you, for a final time, direct your attention in chat. We have actually shared, I think it's one of the last messages, a link where you can follow our Deep Impact series for Deep Knowledge Philanthropy, which just is an inspiring set of short pulse videos that Olawale and his amazing team have put together. Speaking of, I just want to say a big thank you to all of you, all of our incredible speakers. The work you're doing is just brilliant. Keep doing it. And I genuinely hope things, all these obstacles, all these issues, they, you know, just, they're there, but you're pioneering and you are paving the way forward for others following suit. And I hope people who have been in the audience today, witnessing and learning, will be able to take these teachings and these key takeaways with them to do their own social good using technology. Final thank you to the lovely Katerina Marlesh, who's in the background. She's been our technical host, dealing with all of the logistics behind the scenes. So thank you so much to Katerina for driving this session for all of us today and for sharing all the links. It's been my absolute pleasure to have moderated for you all. Wherever you are, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay, bye guys.
Okay. Bye. Ciao.
Bye.